Yeah, Pierre Niney, Count of Monte-Cristo, very intense actor with these amazing eyes. Yes, I do play the drums for fun. The head of the studio said we must get Alain Chabat so that people in France will come see the movie. Because they weren't going to come see me in it. There's a funny story I've never told before, which is, this is probably like the most important movie in my life. Here's the thing, I have not seen Lost, okay? La vie est belle. This story is incredible. Star Trek, my favorite show. If Tom Cruise says, I want to dance, you say, okay, let's dance. Secret Life of Walter Mitty. They should have never remade this movie. Goodbye, Marcus.
Wait! So Ben, welcome to GM Video. It's one of the two last video stores in Paris, actually, where you can rent and buy DVDs. What is your relationship with those kind of places in the US and with more globally with DVDs and Blu-rays?
Well, I mean, I'm from the generation that I grew up with video stores. So I used to rent movies when I was a kid. There were local video stores near my house, and I love going to the stores and being able to just browse around, and there's nothing like, you know, looking for a movie that you're specifically looking for, but then you see all the other movies around it, and, you know, maybe they're just alphabetical or maybe they're a certain genre, but you're just like, oh, that looks interesting, and you pull it out, and it's a way to discover something new that is not necessarily the way like on your, you know, queue on a streamer where they'll, like, the algorithm will figure it out for you, but this is a way to get exposed to a lot more different kinds of movies, which was the fun of going to a store, is the fun of going to a place like this. Exactly. Yeah.
So just behind you, you pick two movies from great Russian filmmakers.
Two light comedies to start out with. Requiem pour un Massacre, which I know it as Come and See. It's an interesting title for this movie because it doesn't really give you a sense of how incredibly impactful it is. It seems kind of light and like, oh, come and see, but it's really one of the most intense war movies I've ever seen. Just the most realistic and really disturbing and beautifully made films. And, you know, when you look at the production value in this movie with just the scale of it and the scope of it and the intensity of it, I don't know if you could do it. You know, this is all obviously pre-computers, and it's just, there's like a texture to it that's incredible. And the main actor is amazing, this young man. You can literally see the toll that the war takes on his face through the course of the movie. So it's a real epic film. There's an incredible sequence in the beginning of the movie, the forest, and these trees are coming down, they're getting bombed or something. It's just, I've seen it only once in a theater, but it really, really was impactful.
Alain Chabat was really obsessed with the concept of hell, and in my opinion, there are a lot of references of hell in Severance, like the antechamber, the purgatory, or some stuff like that. So
interesting.
Did you do some inspiration in it? Or
no, I mean not. You know, nothing. You know, intentional. I feel like with all of these things, you know, when you're making something. All of the things you've watched, you know, they're kind of subconsciously part of what you're doing. And sometimes, you know, sometimes you recognize it and sometimes you don't.
You know, my mother was an atheist. She used to say that there was good news and bad news about hell. The good news is, hell is just the product of a morbid human imagination.
Yeah, there's something to like the idea of purgatory, you know, in Severance, you know, that's not what the big secret is or anything. So I'm sure people will say that now. It's but there's something, you know, the thing about war is obviously, you know, just an awful situation, but it actually reminds me of the situation that they have on the severed floor. They're stuck there, right? They can't leave. They're trying to figure out how to go forward in their lives and, you know, what they want. But in a war situation, you're obviously stuck in this, you know, in the present in this conflict, but it actually makes me think more of the situation that happens with refugees of war, which is a lot of also what this movie is about. You see people who are just kind of having to move out, and you know, if you ever gone to visit a refugee camp, people are you know, living their lives, you know, doctors, lawyers, whatever, you know, just having people who have a life but then get displaced by the war and are stuck somewhere in the purgatory where they can't go forward, they can't do anything. It's weird, I just thought of that, like you're saying that, but like in tents, if you know, like the tents that they set up by, you know, UN Refugee Agency or different like relief places, it's almost like that. They're white and they're sort of just forced to like figure out how to spend their days, but they're stuck there. So that's, yeah. Stalker, really strange and disturbing movie also by Tarkovsky. Jessica Lee Gagne, our cinematographer on Severance, and she directed an episode this year. Turned me on to this movie when we were working on Escape at Dannemora. We really were looking for some sort of references of sort of like people in nature when these two convicts escape from prison and they're stuck out in nature. And this movie is just so weird and beautiful and disconcerting, and it's like a strange science fiction movie. But they go into this place called the Zone, and they're searching for this place or this room, and I think there's like 3 of them, and there's just so many haunting images. And for me, one of the most memorable is there's just like this long pan where the camera just sort of like pans across the water, this sort of brackish water, this swamp, and these different objects are in the water, and it's just like the texture and the colors and the contrast and the sound. He really immerses you in this, in nature, but it's this strange, because there's a strange other level to it that we don't know what goes on in the zone. So it's a very, very unique movie, and, you know, Russian, and he really made some great movies, and, you know, like was a very committed filmmaker, Tarkovsky. Let's see. I mean, there's so many. I could do this forever. There's so many movies. How long do we have to do it? Because I'm happy to do it. I don't want to get rushed at the end. Yeah, Pierre Niney, Count of Monte Cristo.
Je suis le Comte de Monte-Cristo.
It's a very good film. It's very credible production value, and Pierre is just like a very intense actor with these amazing eyes. I met him. Yeah. He has amazing eyes in person too. Very cool. This movie is insane. This is a crazy movie. It's funny how many movies I haven't seen have come out lately. This was great. I love this movie.
Three carrots.
I'm amazed at how Sean Baker really kind of immerses himself in a world, and it's so authentic in the way, I mean, he casts the movie, he edits the movie, directs the movie, writes the movie. I don't know if there are any other directors I know that cast their own movies, but the casting is obviously so important in any movie, and he finds, I mean, these actors were just so alive and so real and entertaining. Also, like, it was really funny, I thought, too. It's like very funny sequences, and the end scene, I think, in this film is just really kind of makes the whole movie, too, I think, in terms of a character study. Yeah. I mean, here's the thing. I have not seen Lost, okay? And this comes up a lot when people talk about Severance.
Guys, where are we?
Damon Lindelof was an amazing television creator, and everybody I know has seen Lost, and everybody in my family has seen Lost. I hear it's amazing and great. It's incredible, I think, that, you know, this was one of those shows that captured everybody's, you know, attention and the consciousness and the culture. You know, and people talk about how it ended and there's controversy and all that, but, you know, you also have to remember for, you know, they did, what, 4 seasons? Or more than 4 seasons?
6 seasons.
6 seasons. So this has 4 seasons on. So 6 seasons where they're doing, what, 22 episodes a season? Just that, you know, and we've been doing our show for 5 years and we've done 19 episodes. So we've had, you know, we have the luxury of being able to take time and streaming now, but when you think about having to do that on a network schedule, It's pretty amazing.
We have to go back, Kate. We have to go back!
And I think, and of course, Leftovers. And it's interesting with Damon because he did this movie, he did this series, which went for 6 seasons, and then he did Leftovers, which went for 2 seasons. I think?
3 seasons, yeah.
3 seasons. And then he did Watchmen. And he just did 1 season. And I think, you know, these days, I think with television that you can really decide how long you think something should last. And there is always pressure when something's a hit that, you know, people want it to keep going. The studio or the network want it to keep going. But I found that, you know, there's really, now people just want something to run its course and feel like it makes sense for the story you're telling. So it's great that there's not that pressure anymore to keep something going. It's because it's a huge hit. So. And
with The Leftovers, there is one guy you work
with. This guy. Yeah, Leftovers was great, except I felt he was a little weak, the lead guy.
Please stop. Okay.
He's one of those like handsome guys with just like looks cool, but not a lot really going on up there. He's got abs, okay, great. No, I know Justin very well. I've known him for like 30 years because he was at my wedding 25 years ago, and I was just at his wedding. So yeah, Justin's one of the the funniest people I know who has abs. It's not fair. It's not fair. He's like really hot and funny. Man Seeking Woman. This Britt Lauer's in this show.
Make no mistake, dating my brother would be a true act of charity. He smells like shit.
And Jay Baruchel, who's in Tropic Thunder, incredibly talented, funny guy.
I don't know that I want a girlfriend, okay? I just got out of a very long-term thing. I'm kind of happy just being... Oh, no.
Yeah, in Tropic Thunder, Jay just did so many rants and improvs that are in the movie where he just keeps talking when everybody's walking, and just talking about DVDs and Blu-rays. And that stuff he just made up on the spot in the movie. It was really great.
Hollywood was split into schisms, some studios backing Blu-ray disc, others backing HD DVD. People thought it would come down to pixel rate or refresh rate, and they were pretty much the same. What it came down to was a combination of gamers and porn.
Black Mirror, excellent, amazing sci-fi show.
We got power back!
I think the show kind of revitalized science fiction on television, and you know, and just so well made. Each one like a little film, and great writing, interesting concepts. Obviously, this is an anthology show, so every episode's a new story, and but I think visually it's incredible, incredible. Yeah, and they do a lot of different directors, but each one has its own style, and but just a lot of care taken in the making of each episode. Really good. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I heard you were.
I mean,
tricky.
come on. Yes, Star Trek, my favorite show, the original series.
Space, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the Starship Enterprise.
I don't know what to say. It's just like so deeply embedded in my DNA. I feel like all those episodes, they really resonate. Not all of them, but like so many of them still resonate. And I think about them constantly when talking about stories and working on scripts and development of things, because there's always like some concept that's like, oh, it's like that Star Trek episode. Or, you know, especially when you're working in science fiction too, which I've never done before Severance. There's, you know, Twilight Zone is another huge influence, I think, for so many people. But Star Trek has, you know, like the episode where Kirk fights himself, where he gets split up in the transporter, and there's like, you know, there's the good Kirk, the gentle part of him, his goodness, and then there's his like, sort of like his id, his like the other part that's like, you know, almost like an angry kind of child who doesn't understand.
I'm the captain! Don't you understand? I'm captain of the ship! I'm the captain! It's my ship!
My ship is mine!
And it's not a direct parallel with Severance, but it's definitely, you know, an interesting sort of concept, the idea, and that they did it, you know, really well. If you want to see one Star Trek episode, watch The Enemy Within for just the most amazing William Shatner acting. It's like he just acts in his own universe, and it's just iconic. It's incredible, and it's both funny, hilarious, and you can't stop watching it, and amazing too.
Is it also true that you name your production company based on a reference to Star Trek?
Yes, our production company is called Red Hour because there's an episode called Return of the Archons where they go down to a planet where for 1 hour a day everybody goes crazy and sort of riots and lets out all their like base instincts, and they call it the Red Hour. So that's what we named my production company. Yeah. Well, I mean, these are some classics like Hollywood, old, you know, I love old Hollywood movies. I love the musicals, the comedies, gangster movies, just the different genres. I'm kind of fascinated with how they made these movies back in those days in terms of how fast they made them, also what the process was at a studio to create the scripts, where they had, you know, teams of writers working on these concepts, which now they don't do anymore, but weirdly I think in Hollywood, you know, mainstream movies, it's still a very similar process. And by the way, I would recommend checking out the show, The Studio, the new Seth Rogen show, because they really get it right. It's incredibly accurate, and it hasn't changed in terms of the ideas that people look for to create a story that they think everybody's going to like.
If Warner Brothers can make $1 billion fucking off the plastic tits of a pussyless doll, we should be able to make $2 billion off the legacy brand of Kool-Aid. Can you make that happen? Oh, yeah.
What's interesting is they would do that by committee back then, but there were some filmmakers who were singular writers and directors. In fact, this guy, Preston Sturges, this is Sullivan's Travels, I think was the first writer-director to work in Hollywood, really, who would write his own movies and direct them. That just didn't happen that much back then. He was a really interesting character, his hand in a lot of different things. He owned a restaurant in Hollywood called the Players Club for a while that I think eventually went out of business, which is right below the Chateau Marmont in Hollywood. Still there, the building's still there. And this movie is, it's sort of his tribute to Hollywood and the process of making movies.
I wanted to make you something outstanding, something you could be proud of, something that would realize the potentialities of film as the sociological and artistic medium that it is, with a little sex in it. Something like
Capra. I know.
It's basically about a director who makes comedies, who feels like what he's doing isn't important. He wants to make serious movies, and he wants to feel what real people are feeling, so he goes on the road and pretends he's sort of like a hobo to try to have a real experience, and eventually ends up like actually getting arrested and going to jail when he doesn't want to. And then when he's in jail on a chain gang, he sees these prisoners watching a cartoon, and they're laughing, these guys who are in like this awful situation, and he sees them laughing at the funny cartoon, and he realizes that, you know, as a filmmaker, comedies are important because they help people get through the tough times in life, and he goes back to making comedies. But he had great dialogue, and yeah, this is one of the, when I was younger, this movie really affected me because I thought, oh, this is kind of about filmmaking, and it's about comedy, and it's also speaking, I guess, to me in a certain way, because I always did comedies, but always wanted to do more serious stuff too, so it's kind of obvious, but I decided, you know, I wanted to just work on things that I really wanted to do. And I was thinking about that, whatever they were. And comedy's hard, it's challenging, you know? If it doesn't work, people, you know, let you know. It's a very tough metric. So I actually look up to people who do great comedies because it's not easy. And I think doing drama, you have a little more leeway because it's more open to interpretation. So for me, it was sort of like, yeah, I wanted to kind of concentrate also on the types of movies I wanted to see, but they ended up being in television. So like Escape at Dannemora was in my mind, was always a movie. And I don't mean in terms of the storytelling arc, but just the feeling of it. And I think the same thing with Severance. We always think of it very much like a movie. But the storytelling in series is you have to be aware of having a beginning, a middle, and an end for each episode. But then the greater story is, of course, really important. Anyway, I like doing drama, and I also like doing comedy, and I'm thinking about doing comedy again at some point. I mean, this is just, la vie est belle.
Yeah. You know, if it wasn't me talking, I'd say you were the prettiest girl in town.
Well, why don't you say it?
One of my favorites of all time. Watch it every Christmas time. It's interesting when you watch it because the whole movie is this fantasy about a guy who's like, committing suicide because everything's going bad in his life, and then this angel comes and shows him what the world would be like without him.
You've been given a great gift, George. A chance to see what the world would be like without you.
Then he decides, oh my God, I gotta, I'm so lucky. I'm not appreciating what I have. But like a really good chunk of the first part of the movie, or more than the first part of the movie, is about the before the angel comes. So it's actually really long till you get to the angel. And it's not really a Christmas movie at all until like the very end. And it's kind of heavy because it's all about this guy who like misses all these chances in life to do what he wants to do, and then there's a run on the bank, and all these things happen. But Frank Capra's an amazing filmmaker, and this was Jimmy Stewart's first movie when he came back from World War II. So he'd been out of the movies for like 5 or 6 years, and probably didn't know where he was in terms of how people would accept him. And from what I understand, the movie didn't do well when it first came out, and then it kind of got discovered later on. But Frank Capra did, he did a lot of test screenings too, which they did back then, and he did Lost Horizon, starring Ronald Colman.
We want to know why we were kidnapped, why we're being kept here, but most important of all, do we get the Potters and when?
And there's a story about him doing a test screening of it in Santa Barbara. It's about a guy who's like helping, sort of like this guy who's always involved in wars. He's sort of like a paid sort of soldier who helps people in these wartime situations, and then his plane crashes over the Himalayas, and he finds Shangri-La, this place. Anyway, there's an interesting story about how he told this story, and then he tested really badly at a test screening in Santa Barbara, and he had this whole beginning part of this guy's life where you saw him doing all this stuff before he crashed, and then he realized if he took out the first reel of the movie and lost all that stuff and just got right to the guy crashing before you knew anything about him, the movie worked much better, which is interesting because like then you don't have any backstory on the guy, but it seemed like the movie, people got it enough. So I'm always interested in stories like that about how movies get to where they are, because when you're editing a movie, that's really like the final draft of the movie. It's the final draft of the script, and the things sometimes that work in the script don't work when you see them in the movie, and then sometimes when you have the cut of the movie, you realize, oh, that even though that was an idea that was there, it doesn't work on screen, and you have to figure it out from there. And yeah, there's a little moment in here in the last episode of the second season of Severance that I always love the scene with Donna Reed and Jimmy Stewart where they're on the phone together listening to her boyfriend talking to them, or fiancé, and the two of them are next to each other. There's this energy between them, and you realize that these two people really are meant to be together, even though they're not admitting it to each other. And that was something I thought about when we were shooting this sort of last scene with Helly and Mark when he's finishing, completing the Cold Harbor file. And that image was kind of in my head because I just always loved that image. Secret Life of Walter Mitty.
Wonderful, wonderful. Wonderful.
They should have never remade this movie. I mean, the original great film, totally different than what Steve Conrad came up with, who wrote Secret Life of Walter Mitty, who's a brilliant writer. And Danny Kaye, really talented guy. There's a funny story I've never told before, which is my parents were actors. Comedy team, acted in some movies and TV shows, and they were on a special of Danny Kaye's. I think it was probably like in the 60s or something, like a television special, and apparently he fired them from the special. Yeah, they got fired. And so we never really were Danny Kaye fans in my house growing up because he was the guy who fired my parents. That being said, I don't know what really happened, but he's incredibly talented. And anyway, it's, yeah, the short story is really nothing like the movie, the original, and our movie is nothing like this movie.
I just live by the ABCs. Adventurous, brave, creative.
That's everything I want in a man. My man. Hey, my man, you still there?
But that's one of the best experiences I ever had making a movie with the group of people we had, and Steve Conrad's a great filmmaker himself. French cinema, and of course right here, Alain Chabat, my friend Napoleon from the museum.
Were you guys like friends in college and just afraid now to both ruin your relationship by telling the other person that you want to be more than friends, that you like each other?
One more time? I'm sorry, I didn't catch.
And John Bernthal's friend, apparently, who played young Al Capone in that movie. And he's in Night at the Museum, he's like Night at the Museum 2, he's black and white the whole time. He's in black and white, yeah. Anyway, Alain Chabat, great comedy star.
Dis donc, ton peuple, t'es quand même grec au départ, alors comme égyptienne de souche, j'ai vu mieux, excuse-moi.
And I know that when we were making the movie, the head of the studio said we must get Alain Chabat so that people in France will come see the movie. Because they weren't going to come see me in it. French have made some good films, right? This is interesting. Well, here, there's one like Le Cinéma de Jean-Pierre Melville. I'm not as much of an expert on Melville as maybe someone like Tarantino is, because I know he's, you know, loves his movies. But yeah, Army of Shadows.
Mais ce n'est pas possible. Je vous en supplie, c'est un assassinat.
Nous sommes ici pour tuer de toute façon, vous êtes d'accord?
Je suis d'accord, mais pas comme ça.
It's a film about the French resistance in World War II. Really intense movie in terms of showing how committed these people were and how serious it was to have these secrets, you know, in the resistance.
À quelle organisation appartenez-vous?
Je ne vois pas de quoi vous voulez parler.
Vous savez ce que vous risquez. Être fusillé sous un faux nom et que jamais personne ne sache ce que vous êtes devenu.
And it was life and death, so there's like long periods of tension and quiet, and then all of a sudden there's this like really intense violence that happens, and it's really effective movie and has an incredible sort of feel to it. And yeah, I'm working on a movie about a fighter pilot who gets shot down in World War II, an American who gets shot down in occupied France and is taken in by a family in a farmhouse, and a French resistance fighter comes and helps him. And so after I finish here, I'm gonna go down to Toulouse and Bordeaux and do a little research for that movie.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, so I'm very excited to be here. But it's funny also being in a video DVD store, the stress of having to like put it back in the right place. I remember as a kid, that was always a thing too. Yeah, anyway, okay. I mean, Eternal Sunshine, Michel Gondry.
Show me which constellations you know.
I don't know any. Brilliant seminal film that's affected so many people and influenced so many filmmakers. Definitely influenced Dan Erickson, I think, in creating Severance. Just an incredibly moving and emotional movie about you know, the pain of relationships. Brilliantly directed, and I definitely drew a lot from him in terms of how he integrated memories visually into the present by taking real, you know, real things and real objects and mixing them up and creating these sort of, you know, amalgams of the past and the present with practical effects. He's just, yeah, an incredibly inventive filmmaker, and Jim Carrey, Kate Winslet, great performances. Yeah.
One of the best. Yeah,
yeah, beautiful, beautiful movie.
Did you already know him when you cast him years ago for the Cable Guy?
That's your sweet spot right there.
Did I know Jim Carrey? I mean, I knew him from a little bit. I'd seen him around. He was just sort of happening. But Judd Apatow and I were friends, and Judd was the one who said you should do this movie. We had a good time. Yeah. Oh yeah, here, the comedy. Yeah. American comedies. Yes. I mean, look at all these people. These funny Step Brothers.
I just want you to know I hate you. And so does my dad. Well, that's fine. Because guess what? I hate you too.
One of the funniest ever. Adam Scott. I mean, Will Ferrell to me is the funniest person ever, I think. He makes me laugh more than anybody. John C. Reilly's amazing. This movie just has such a weird tone, and Adam Scott, you know, singing with his family is so stupid.
She's got a smile that it seems to me reminds me of childhood memories.
My favorite scene is the dinner table scene where he tells a story and then he gets thrown off the story because I think John C. Reilly interrupts him and then he gets mad, and he's so ridiculous in this movie. So that was the first thing I really saw Adam Scott in and loved. Farrelly Brothers, Dumb and Dumber. You know, Farrelly Brothers.
How important were they in your career?
Oh, the Farrelly Brothers were incredibly important because up till the point I did There's Something About Mary, I hadn't been in a movie that was really bankable or it made any money. So I was like directing. I directed Reality Bites and I directed Cable Guy, and I'd acted in Reality Bites and a couple Flirting with Disaster. I think Peter Farrelly saw Flirting with Disaster and he suggested that I could be in There's Something About Mary. I don't think the head of the studio guy was that excited about it, but then somehow my agent helped I got the role, and then that movie did well, and then it sort of changed things because, you know, then more movies came my way as an actor. Yeah, and it was fun to be a part of their world because I had a very different approach to filmmaking, and they had a very sort of anti-filmmaking approach to filmmaking. They didn't really, you know, feel like they had to follow any of the rules, which was great because they were just doing what they thought was funny, and audiences liked that too. Take a Destiny, we produced this movie. I have a little cameo in it.
What you seek is the pick of destiny.
My producing partner, who's no longer with us, Stuart Kornfeld, great producer, was a huge champion of Tenacious D. Stuart is also in a lot of movies. He's in Fast Times at Ridgemont High. He plays the pirate guy at the fast food place, and he was great. So I think of Stuart when I think of Tenacious D. I love Jack and Kyle. Jack's one of the most talented actors ever. Both these guys together, seeing them play live is amazing.
I do not need a microphone. A microphone.
Yeah, Saturday Night Movie. I really like this movie. It's so interesting.
Well, I promise not to play the music too loud.
Oh, fuck that. This isn't the Moose Jaw Jazz Festival. It's Saturday fucking night. I want you to be thunderous and deafening. If my ears don't bleed, I'll be asking for a refund.
I feel like he really took on this project of recreating the energy of this first night, and it's really interesting, kind of weird movie because it's that, and he got all these great actors to, like, you know, to play these people. I grew up with Saturday Night Live, and I thought he did a really great job of capturing the energy of that time, and it's just I'm glad he made the movie. And let's see, I mean, you know, oh my God.
Yeah, American section, yeah.
Okay, let's do it. Can I go back here? Oh my God, this is a great store, by the way. This store is incredible. You have all these movies that I thought might be too obscure, you know? I thought this might be too obscure.
Albert Brooks?
Yeah, Albert Brooks.
Yeah.
Is he appreciated in France?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. The French have always appreciated the sort of...
Maybe.
Or is that the cliche?
No.
I mean, he should be more appreciated in America, I think. I think it's interesting, like, right now, like, in terms of how people look at movies, it's very like focused on the present, you know, people's memories from movies. It seems like just don't go back that far. Albert Brooks, this is Albert Brooks' first movie, real life.
A startling breakthrough in technology. The smallest, most versatile motion picture camera ever made. From Holland, the Ettenauer 226 XL.
He had made short films for Saturday Night Live, and it's a sort of a parody of a documentary of a filmmaker making a documentary about a family that he follows for a year, because that was a real thing that had just happened. So it sort of is seeing the future for reality television. This is before reality television, and these people with these weird helmets are the cameramen who are supposed to be like unobtrusive, but then like you always just see these weird like helmet guys in the background. And Charles Grodin, who's one of the great comedic actors we had, you know, I have Heartbreak Kid is somewhere around, the original Heartbreak Kid is somewhere here, right? But here, yeah, so two Albert Brooks movies are Defending Your Life and Real Life. Defending Your Life is just like a great concept for a movie. Like, what if you died and before you get to heaven you have to go to a courtroom and defend all the things you did in your life that would make you worthy of going to heaven? And then, of course, he has to look at all the bad choices he made.
I believe that I can show, without a shadow of a doubt, that he must once again be returned to Earth to work on this problem.
And he has Meryl Streep, who's like the most angelic, perfect person who's with him, who he makes friends with, who's definitely going to heaven, but it seems like he might have another few lives to live before he gets to go to heaven. Anyway, great concept for a movie and very funny movie. So I was mentioning Charles Grodin in Real Life, and Charles Grodin's the star of the original Heartbreak Kid. I was in a remake that the Farrelly brothers did, very different movie. This movie, for me, has always been one of my kind of North Star movies for tonally, for just real sort of relationship comedy. I was just watching White Lotus recently, right? And I haven't seen the latest, but you know, a couple of weeks ago there's this great scene with Sam Rockwell and Walt Goggins, where Sam Rockwell starts going on this monologue telling Walt Goggins all this crazy stuff.
I realized I could fuck a million women, I'd still never be satisfied. Maybe what I really want is to be one of these Asian girls.
The scene's brilliant, Rockwell's brilliant, but what I was also taken with was Walt Goggins' reactions in that scene are what really make the scene too. And and I think, I feel like in comedy films, sometimes, you're the reactor, you're the person who has to take it in and be the audience. And Charles Grodin, I think, was one of the best at this. I think Charles Grodin, Gene Wilder, for me, were sort of like the two leading comedic actors in the 70s who were able to do that so well. And the interesting sort of goal for this character is a very 70s sort of goal, which is this guy, goes on a honeymoon with this woman that he's supposed to marry, and realizes on the honeymoon that he can't stand her, which he kind of knew already. And then he sees this beautiful woman who he's like, oh, I want that. Now, obviously today, you're not gonna, this movie is probably not gonna get off the ground today in terms of the concept for a lot of reasons. But the thing about it that's so interesting is it's showing how this character is, how confused he is, not knowing himself really, thinking this other person is gonna be the answer to all his problems. He finally gets the girl, and then he's like stuck at this reception, I guess his wedding reception, I think, and he's sitting on this couch and he's just a guy who kind of has always figured out how to get what he wants, and he's like sitting next to this kid and he just starts talking to this little 10-year-old kid, like a person. He's just talking so what are you doing here? And you realize he's just sort of like a kid, kind of he's no closer to getting what he wants than he was at the beginning of the movie, and he thought that this other ideal was what he wanted. And the ending is just again, an ending you really couldn't do today for a studio movie, but it's, I think, one of the great endings of a movie. Wow. I mean, you have so many good movies here.
Now look, don't get involved in this, Mr. Cole. Those tapes are dangerous. You heard them. You know what I mean.
Conversation, just tonally, again, another sort of thing for me. I think, I think of the character study of Gene Hackman's character, the quietness, the subtlety of his performance, the depth of what's going on with Hackman. There's an amazing shot. We're up high looking at these two people who are having a conversation that he's listening to, but you don't see them because you're 20 stories up, and it's just a slow zoom in to find these two people walking and talking. And I have to say, I totally ripped that off in Escape at Dannemora for a shot of Benicio and Paul Dano walking on the yard of the prison. And we said, look, can we do the conversation shot? I mean, he's the best. Owen Wilson, Minuit à Paris. Owen just sort of skates through life, doing movies with filmmakers, and I mean, he's one of a kind screen presence. I love him. We've been friends for a long time. Super smart guy. Likes to read a lot. Kind of loves art. Has a great art collection. Things you don't know about Owen Wilson. It's always hard to locate. It's like, where are you? It's like, oh, I'm in Hawaii. Or where are you? Oh, I'm at the French Open. I'm going to the F1. Yeah, anyway, I do a horrible Owen Wilson impression. Okay, Mission Impossible 2, Tom Cruise. What can you say? You know, he's the man. We did a little, 25 years ago, this movie was made because I was on my honeymoon, came back from my honeymoon to do a little short where I played his stuntman for the MTV Movie Awards. We did a little short, that was really fun.
This next shot's gonna be a real bitch, huh? It shouldn't be that bad. Nah, probably not that bad.
He's still doing Mission Impossible and taking it to the next level. And I just saw Christopher McQuarrie the other night in London, and they're about to unleash this new one. And I can't say enough about Tom. I love working with him. Obviously, we did Tropic Thunder together.
First, take a big step back and literally fuck your own face!
I think he just loves movies, and he's so aware of what movies do for people and what he is as a movie star. And I think Top Gun, the last Top Gun, I don't think people realize how hard he had to work to get that out in the theaters, to make sure that that was a big event in theaters. And you know, he's taken it on to, you know, keep movies going. People like him and Chris Nolan who are insisting on putting their movies out in theaters for long runs. So he's one of the best.
I just want to ask you one more thing about Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
Because the three of us are really fans of Tropic Thunder. How did you put the last scene where we dance? Who had the idea? Was it him?
Yeah, it was all Tom Cruise's idea to play Les Grossman. Like literally the character was his idea. And he said, I want to dance when I do the movie. I just feel like I want to dance. I don't know where that came from. I never really asked him why he thought that. But I just, you know, if Tom Cruise says, I want to dance, you say, okay, let's dance.
This is the good part, Pecker. That's when the job gets fun.
And we did a makeup test on, you know, for his prosthetics, and we filmed the makeup test, and then I played some music when we were just rolling the camera, just, you know, because makeup test, you just like, you know, stand, turn around, do that. And then I played some music, and he started doing these moves and doing his dancing, and then my editor, Greg Hayden and I, we cut it together to some music, to that Ludacris song. I showed it to Tom, I was like, this is really, like, this is pretty cool. And then I had the idea, like, let's put it in the end credits.
Why you all in my ear, talking a whole bunch of shit that I ain't trying to hear?
That's where it came out, yeah. From the test, yeah. Which is cool. Marriage Story, another great movie.
How dare you compare my mothering to my mother? I may be like my father, but I am not like my mother.
You are! And you're like my father. You're also like my mother. You're all the bad things about all of these people.
Incredibly emotional, great actors, Adam Driver, Scarlett, love Noah Baumbach. I love his aesthetic. I love the way he makes movies. I feel lucky that I got to do Greenberg with him. And one of the great cinematographers, Harris Savitas, who left us way too young and who's an amazing artist, and be able to get a chance to watch his process and how he did what he did. Whiplash, one of the best endings for a movie. Miles Teller playing the drums, I don't even understand how he did that because he's so good. And they made this movie in, I think, like 3 weeks or something. It was a very short schedule. And obviously, Damien Chazelle, one of our, I love his choices. I love what he's doing as a filmmaker and the genres that he's gone into. I really liked First Man a lot. I think that's an underappreciated movie.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
Yeah, simple but great screenplay. And J.K. Simmons, incredible. Great.
I also believe, because I heard that in another life you could have been a drummer of a band.
Yes, I do play the drums for fun, and I had a band in high school, so I did appreciate it on that level. But then when you see what it takes to really be a drummer, and to keep time, you know, then it's just like, not my time. It's like classic.
Not quite my tempo.
And what's the other one? There's another, I always forget the name of this documentary about the drummer Ginger Baker, who says, like, either you're born with time or you don't have it. I don't have time. Like I'm a drummer who can play. I can play, okay, but I don't have natural. You know, that's like something that a professional has. I think you can't learn that. I think.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry, we are running out of time. I have just time for one last. I let you choose one last.
One last. Okay. Oh my God. I gotta go. I have to go with Jaws. I have to go with Jaws because this is probably like the most important movie in my life. I saw it when I was 10 years old when it came out, and I think it's what movies are, you know. And it's the direction, it's the acting, it's the writing, the relationship of these three guys in this movie, which, you know, I think on a metaphorical level they represent so much. You know, it's the movie that scared everybody out of the water, and you know what Spielberg did with that, you know, in terms of scaring people without seeing the shark, because they had issues with the shark because the shark wasn't working that well. But for me, it was like as a 10-year-old seeing this movie, running out to get the book, the making of Jaws, the Jaws log, it was called the Jaws log that Carl Gottlieb, who wrote the movie, wrote. And any behind the scenes I could get on, I was just like fascinated with it. It made me I wanted to do this. I did a version on Super 8 in my bathtub. And I know it, like, I just know it so well. I can watch this movie over and over and over again. I love it, so. Légende de la mer.
Thank you very much, Ben.
There's so much, I really wish I could do this more. It's so much fun.
I know, but
yeah.
Thank you so much.
Konbini!